All right, Fight Game Podcast here. I didn't do my normal startup because we have a guest who is hosting here. Paul Fontaine is substituting for John LaRocca. Now, John LaRocca is he's been ill this week. I think he could have done the show, but we would have had to have a cough button for him because he's still got a little bit of thing going on with his throat. So, as always, Paul was available because this is the time of evening where I think your life sort of gets quiet for the first time all day.
Yeah, more or less. What up, what up, what up?
Exactly. So Paul's going to join me for the Fight Game Podcast. We're actually simulcasting this show. We are on the F4W live YouTube channel, and we're also on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel as well. So welcome, everybody who's hanging out with us here. This kind of is not a test. We've done live shows of the Fight Game Podcast to these channels before, but my hope is that we start to do them more often. My co-host John LaRocca has a Wi-Fi problem in his home, so we're trying to get him hardwired to the modem. And if we can do that, I think his signal will be strong enough for us to do this every now and again. So when Paul's available, his Wi-Fi signal is strong. I know we could do this, so that's why we are live on YouTube. All right, Paul, I told you that we were going to bring back an old favorite segment called Thumbs Up and Thumbs Down. And the reason why John and I don't do it now is because when you record on audio, it's a little bit harder for me to have what I would call a drop board where I could just play things. I would have to go put it back in post-production and such. But since we are live on YouTube, StreamYard allows me to do that. So we're going to bring back Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down. I prepared you for this. But before we do that, I just wanted to quickly mention to folks the F4W Convention that is coming up, because Paul is actually going to be there. Paul and myself will both be in Vegas with the F4W crew. Brian and Vinny will be there. And I just want to quickly, I think most folks, if you've made your plans, you already know about this. But if there are any stragglers on the fence, I would say definitely 100% come out to Vegas and come and hang. You can go to the website f4w.com and you'll see a post called Brian and Vinny. What is it called? Brian and Vinny, What Happens in Vegas. There's a link that allows you to buy tickets for our Friday Texas Day Brazil dinner. There's a meet and greet and a podcast, a live podcast with Brian and Vinny. There's also Ed's Poder Seis. Can you believe Ed in San Antonio has put together and promoted 6 wrestling shows?
No, especially because a couple of them, it was a little rough early on, but it's gotten a lot better. And he's not, he's gotten a lot of support and gets great cards. Like if you look at the card, it's a lot of the top females in independent wrestling.
There will be a sweet party, and then I believe on Double or Nothing Sunday, before Double or Nothing, there's a brunch with it, which is kind of like the secret favorite event for folks. So that is it. If you want to come hang out, me and Paul will be there. And we're just going to be there doing all of the events with everybody. So come join us and hang out.
There's unofficial events that aren't on there. So if you show up, you'll find out about them.
Yeah, we'll see about those.
What happens in Vegas?
Unfortunately, Big Dave will not be with us because his daughter has an event that he needs to be home for. I heard that he was going to try to fly in late Saturday night, and the powers that be told him, just don't worry about it. You can stay home, one of these times. So, we'll miss Big Dave, but everybody everyone else will be there. And then obviously next May, WrestleMania in Vegas. I'm sure we're going to do something around there.
Yeah.
All right, let's kick it off with our opening segment here.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
All right, so what do we do here? Basically, we look at the week that has happened, and we give a thumbs up to the person who had a good week, and we give a thumbs down to the person who maybe didn't have a great week. for our own reasons. This is not something where, we need to be super picky about why. It's just to create conversation about what's going on in the world of professional wrestling. So, Paul, since you were the guest, did you want to kick off with your thumbs up for this week?
Sure. And shout out to Keela Cash, who voiced that segment and was the guest on my other show this week, Voices of Wrestling, or Voices of Wrestling, Joy of Wrestling.
You're telling us something? You're secretly telling us something.
Yeah, free plug there for
Voices of
someone
Wrestling.
we're going to talk about in a bit. Well, no, not actually. No, never mind. Anyways, no, my thumbs up. My thumbs up, and you said person. It doesn't have to be a person, right?
No. It's just
okay.
Anything.
Yeah. So my thumbs up is, not exactly sure how to word this, but it's, I guess the way that WWE is promoting the women on their roster, and the reason for that is on Friday night when I watched SmackDown this past week, and it was the show from Paris before Backlash. They opened the show with an 8-woman tag involving basically all the women that were going to be on the card the next day. It was Bianca, Jade, Tiffany, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank here. The Damage Control, Bailey, and they gave them all separate entrances. And the reaction that these women got for their entrances, they just came off like the biggest stars in the world. Now, obviously, this was a really hot crowd and a unique crowd, and one that, we probably only get once. Well, I mean, some will say once in a lifetime, but like once a year. I mean, we had one last year with Backlash in Puerto Rico. But specifically for these women, like they kicked off the show with it. They all got separate entrances, and they all just like, it hit me that all these women, like, this isn't like a token applause. Yay, WWE's here. Like it was, these women actually have a purpose. They all have distinctive goals. They're all pushed very well, very strong. They can main event shows with them and nobody bats an eye. So I just I've just noticed that. And, and really, like before WrestleMania, if there's a week where Roman Reigns wasn't on, Bailey and Damage Control were holding the fort, and they were building the shows around them. And now it's just carried over, because, after WrestleMania, it's kind of like all the stars leave, quote unquote. So these women are stars on their own now. And I mean, there's other people too, but we're talking 8 women, that it used to be, they were bathroom break, the diva break, like in between the 2 big matches. And now they're just as big as the men in a lot of ways. And I think we've come a long way. WWE obviously has a long way to go, and they've got to change a lot of what they do behind the scenes, but in front of the camera, it's clicking right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point that you made at the end there, because there's still this giant story that I'm sure will be out there for a long while, and it's not a great look. But what they can only do is continue to push the women as best as they can. And one thing about being in a hot period, because if we go back to WrestleMania, when was WrestleMania in LA? What WrestleMania was that? 36?
Oh yeah.
No, sorry, 38. It was 38.
38. Yeah.
So 38.
Coming 39 last year.
Dallas, then I'm thinking.
Oh, Dallas 38. Yeah,
Dallas was 38. Yeah. So coming out of Dallas, you had Cody debuting, and you had Austin on that show, and that felt like the new point for them, popularity wise. They'd sort of been given this new peak, and from then on until now, they've been riding this wave. And when you're hot, you should start to push folks to take advantage of that hotness, whether it's an undercard person who's got promise, whether it's a new character, whether it's a fringe character. And thankfully, their women's division was really strong at that time, but also had new characters coming in. Bianca, it was still young, and Rhea obviously took the ball and ran with it. And you have these vets like Becky and Charlotte and Bailey. Unfortunately, Sasha was the one to not really be on this wave. And you're able to take advantage of this hot period and make people who have talent and make them even stronger stars. And you're 100% right in that one, I'll talk about AEW in a second. And similarly, my thumbs up is about their women's division.
Oh, good.
The ability to turn Rhea Ripley into a main eventer, the ability to keep Becky hot as a top star. Like, these are really attractions. And that should be the goal. Like, you should have attractions from all genders, all races, all styles, because that shows that, you're truly on fire. So my thumbs up, not AEW specifically the company. It is two women who are kind of on the come up to me. Now, I think you'd have to be blind if you haven't seen Willow Nightingale coming. She's been a delight on the AEW television show. And I think she's actually getting really good cutting promos, cutting serious promos, still being delightful, but really honing in on what a promo is supposed to be. And I thought she was the best thing on Wednesday's show, and I thought she'd outshine Mercedes as well. I know some people like that Mercedes promo. I'm kind of tired of the same type of Mercedes promo, but Willow really took advantage of that opportunity of, and in some ways, I wasn't happy with it coming right after this heavy heat of Swerve getting beat up by his Mogul Embassy crew, because it went like heavy heat, and then Willow's like, "Oh, I'm always happy," and I was like, like there's a little bit of a disconnect there, but she brought it back because she cut a really serious promo. I thought that was awesome. And the second one is another up and comer. I like to call her me and Mariah. Shout out to ODB, RIP ODB. I think Mariah is awesome. Now, her character is still developing. She's still really young. The wrestling is good. I wouldn't say she's a great wrestler yet. She had this match with Harley Cameron. I was really scared for somebody's life when this match ended. And then they just kind of kept it together, and it was fine. Like, it wasn't, well, I wouldn't say it was good even, but it was totally fine. It was much better than I thought. I thought both women did a good job. Like, there were moments where you could tell Harley was a little nervous, and it was like, get to a spot, do the spot correctly, and instead of like letting the audience know that, and holding it out there for the audience, she was like, immediately to the next thing and immediately to the next thing. But then they slowed it down a little bit, and I thought it was fine. And this is not me saying that their match was great, but I do enjoy. I think Mariah May and Willow, if you are looking for sort of we just talked about Rhea Ripley and Bianca and sort of being these women that you just get behind, man, both of them are strong. Willow and Mariah May are really strong right now, and they are some of the things that I'm most looking forward to on Dynamite, and that's a show with Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay. So that says a lot from my perspective.
Yeah, I agree that the Willow promo was probably, I don't know, for me, I really like that Samoa Joe video package. But other than that, the Willow promo was like my favorite thing on the show. And it's like, I think 2 in a row now where she's just completely knocked it out of the park. That one, the live one in front of the crowd that she did, a few weeks back, was really good. And just something you said at the end there with Mariah May and Willow, like, that's a match that I hope that Tony has kind of on his little spreadsheet or his clipboard or whatever it is that he uses, that he's putting off for like a year and a half from now. That, by the time we get there, that's going to be a match that people really, really want to see, that we haven't seen yet. And both of them are way more established. And that could be like your Rhea and Bianca, for WWE, like that version of that, where, it's this absolute great baby face. And I think Mariah May is probably better served as a heel. I mean, it's hard to say. Like you said, she's still developing her character, and it could really go either way. And really, like, she kind of plays both characters right now. Sometimes she's a baby face with Mina Shirakawa. Sometimes she's a heel with Tony. But and the fans really clearly like her. But I do believe that she can play that heel. and be a great foil for someone like Willow. And obviously with Toni Storm at some point, she's probably gonna, that's probably comes first. So yeah, I quietly, and Tony took a lot of flack for the way that he's presenting women's wrestling for a long time. And now we have people coming up that are starting to establish themselves, and we have women's matches that don't involve titles, and we have feuds and programs, and we saw them intertwined this week with Saraya out there with Harley Cameron, and that match shocked me. Like I'm not saying it was a match of the year or anything like that, but I was expecting a worse match of the year, and I mean, it's far from that. It wasn't even the worst match on the night. So,
no, I don't think so.
Yeah,
and this is a point that I think we both agree on, in that there's no more excuses for the gender biases in pro wrestling. You look at Caitlin Clark and what she did in the women's tournament. You look at the WNBA, and it's not even now, right? Like I've always loved, like, especially the Olympics are coming up. Man, I like a lot of the women's sports. Like I would rather watch women's gymnastics than I would watch men's gymnastics. I would rather watch women's volleyball than men's volleyball. And so there's no, like, we now see the proof. You have the data that women's sports is on a high wave right now, and there's no excuse for AEW to not show that in their television program. That it's really been time, and so I'm happy to see those two, but we need more. There's so many women that are out there that I see on different television shows, whether it's New Japan or whatever, where I'm like, or, ROH, they're actually in their own company, where I'm like, why isn't this woman on? Let's really hope that Jamie Hayter comes back, because Jamie Hayter was on a roll before she got hurt. But there's like, there's the Queen, my favorite, Queen Amanada. There's Stephanie Vicaire. There's poor Athena. There's got to be a reason why Athena's in ROH and not on AEW. I'm not sure what that is, but like that seems like a giant mistake. There's lots of women on that roster, and those also who are out there and available. They really need to double down. I would, pull back on a lot of the older roster on the male side that they have, and let's add more women to that roster. So that would be where it's just too late. There's no excuses left for that to be. All right, let's get to your thumbs down. What is your thumbs down?
Well, you touched on it briefly when you talked about the segment that happened right before the Willow promo, and it's not specifically that segment, but it was just the overall theme on the show this week with AEW Dynamite. And then, not just this week, but it feels like the last couple weeks is just the heat. Heat. Like, we had 5 matches on Dynamite. One of them was, an enhancement match with Chris Jericho and Big Bill against a couple local enhancement talent. But the other 4 matches and the interview segment with Christian and Swerve all ended in heel beatdowns. Where as soon as the match was over, we had people attacking the babyface. And then, a couple times we had saves, but it was just one after the other. And this is following last week where you had Kenny Omega get beat down by the Elite. And then the week before where you had Tony Khan get a pile driver from the Elite. And it's starting to remind me a little bit of 2019 WWE, where, like, people were getting sick of that. And it's part of the reason why AEW exists right now. And I think a lot of their fans, maybe they don't see it, or they just don't care, and they're just so happy with what they see. But some of us that watch both, and I say us, I don't mean to include you, but me and my co-host on the Dynamite show, Jeff Hawkins, feels the same way. It's just like, I want to see some baby faces get some shine, and we got, like, Kyle O'Reilly's going to have a match this weekend in his hometown for the TNT title. He's losing. And it used to be like, if you got a guy getting a title shot in his hometown, okay, he's winning. Like, oh, Darby Allin's getting a title shot, he's winning. Britt Baker, she's winning. Like, everybody in their hometown always used to get wins. Now they're lucky if they don't get hauled out on a stretcher.
Yeah, I think they need to spread out the heat, and they need to let the heat sink in with the fans. All that to the back stuff, like, let that stuff go to commercial. When you come back from commercial, talk about it and then go to the next segment. Like, just these it just shows like a tone deafness with how this television show comes across. I know they need to get a lot of stuff in. They have so many wrestlers there. It's all about wrestling matches. I just don't see like I don't see the point of doing these heavy heat angles if you don't let them sink in on the television show. So
Well, not only not sink in, like we had Orange Cassidy get what should have put him out for like 6 months, and he was up 10 seconds later fighting. But
Yeah.
not only that, okay, like he's selling his neck, he's holding his neck, and like even backstage, then they make a joke of it when you have Rocky Romero come in and say, "Oh, why don't we just mend fences with Trent and tag up and go for the trios titles?" I'm like, what? And thank God Orange Cassidy looked at him with the same look I had on my face. Like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
But it was a joke. And really, we should be caring about Orange Cassidy and we should be like wanting him to get revenge. And instead, they're joking about it.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
totally. All right. My thumbs down. It is a tie. These
Okay.
two men are closely tied to each other if you were a WWE fan in the mid 2000s. Ric Flair and Triple H, but for completely different reasons. I'm sure folks saw the viral video of old Nate yelling at people. He was definitely drinking, making statements. It's just like, Rick, you got to be smarter than that, man. Everybody's got a phone. If they recognize who you are, they're going to be recording you, and just treat people better, no matter if you feel that you were right or not. But I'm just like, I think about people who are close to him, and I'm sure he feel like when he actually does think about it the next day, he probably does feel bad, but probably really embarrassing for the people who are close to him as well to constantly see him in situations like this. So, that was a bad one. But this one also, Triple H at the Backlash press conference, there was a young man who asked him a question about Drew Gulak. He associated the stories to PWI and Fightful. Triple H took a shot at PWI and Fightful as, what did he call them? Not reputable sources or not reputable websites or something like that.
He just said you should use reputable websites.
Okay.
Insinuating that they weren't.
And then he also took a shot. I personally think this is a shot. Paul doesn't agree that it was a shot, but talking about how you can't just hire everybody. I thought that was a shot at Tony Khan. I think this also got blown out of proportion. My thumbs down for Triple H isn't necessarily about those websites in general. The fact that he knows what those websites are actually tells you that they're probably doing a pretty good job, because no person that you're covering necessarily is happy with the coverage unless it's like PR stuff, and so if you're being covered fairly, your flaws and your strengths, then that's kind of the way to do the deal. And Triple H is kind of a bully in that way. I think, and it's from just understanding this game and also seeing how he has been the master politician. I just find him, I just think instinctually he's kind of a jock bully. And then he's got to catch himself and go like, okay, like I'm actually presenting myself to lots and lots of people watching. Nick Khan is the dandy of Hollywood media. Those guys see him as a power guy, as a mover and shaker. Nick Khan needs the version of Nick Khan to be the face of WWE. And when I see Triple H trip up in this way, I kind of go, man, if he would just be a little bit more business savvy and not be so wrestling locker room, I think they'd get taken a little bit more seriously. Now they're being taken more seriously today than they've ever been taken. But if I'm thinking about what Ari Emanuel and Nick Khan want out of this company, they probably think sky's the limit. And when Triple H is gotten to that easily, and it shows, and there's a story, and I know, he's sending people cheese and everything as a joke or whatever, but I think he needs to do a little bit of a better job if he's going to be the public face of WWE.
So yeah, I mean, nothing you said there's wrong, and you know, and the way he treated that, you know, that I'll call him a kid. You know, I think he's 21, 22 years old, journalist from, you know, local from France. You know, probably getting to ask a question of you know, a famous person maybe for the first time. I don't know, but he needs to have a little bit more tact, obviously. But what he reminded me of, and I was thinking about this as you were talking. I don't know how often you watch the UFC press conferences, but I don't know if he's learning from Dana White or if they're just cut from the same cloth or what, but a lot of what he does is very similar to what Dana White does. Like you kiss his ass, he'll kiss yours. But as soon as you ask him something tough or something that he doesn't want to answer, then he starts to fight back. And I think that's what happened here, because that guy asked a question, and the way he asked the question that he asked was a great question. It was the only real question that anybody asked at this you know, scrum. And but the way he asked it gave Triple H an out to not answer the question and to take the shot that he did. And I'm not justifying what he did, but I'm saying, like, he gave him that opening. And maybe if the guy was a little bit more experienced, or, you know, no, maybe he just doesn't know like what this is, what, pardon the expression, the game is. But if he would have said, you know, like, just ask the question, was Drew Gulak released because of the Ronda Rousey allegations? That's all he had to say. But as soon as he says, oh, Fightful and, you know, whatever PW Insider are reporting that, well, then all of a sudden Triple H hops on that and doesn't answer the question.
Yeah.
And now all anybody's talking about is what he said about PW Insider and Fightful. And yeah, some people are saying, wait a second, he didn't even answer the question. You know, and like, but then he kind of did answer the question, and it's probably the answer he would have given anyways. But at least he wouldn't have taken that shot, and at least that, you know, we would have saw, okay, we're going to get the non-answer answer. And, you know, and that was a good question. And again, one that, you know, like Triple H gave a BS answer for that, you know, anybody can see right through. We know why he's gone. And yeah, well, technically he's not gone. He's still here, you know, but he's going to be gone, but he's not gone right now.
Yeah.
And then of course if he took the shot at Tony, you know, and I'm definitely in the minority. Like, most people took that as a shot at Tony, and maybe it was, I don't know. But for me watching it, oh, okay, you know, he's trying to compare himself to the NFL. He's trying to put himself higher than pro wrestling, I think. And that seems to be like, that's probably something he learned from Vince. You know,
he reminds me of Vince when he does this. It's not the same temperament. It's not the same puff out your chest alpha dog. There is a little bit of humbleness to his personality, but I think he knows that that's going to make him a little bit more likable. But the same jock bully stuff that he does is what reminds me of Vince. All right, let's hit the top 5 here. We have 5 subjects every week that John and I hit. Sometimes they may be more than 5, but we try to keep them to 5. And they're really just topical things that we want to talk about for the week in wrestling. There's a lot of WWE business news that came out this week. They had the TKO investors call. We learned today that SmackDown is actually leaving Big Fox a few weeks early, and so their deal with USA kicks off. I believe it's 3 weeks earlier, or at least two weeks earlier than we thought, 2 or 3. And what that means, at least as far as the notes that came out, is that it's staying on Friday, which is not the greatest day probably for their television ratings, but might be the best day for WWE to sell their product on PLE weekends, especially if there's going to be more synergy with the UFC and those shows as well. You have the Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. So we learned that today. We also learned from the call that it's possible that the Saudi Arabia shows that they might actually get a big one. There was some talk. I still can't believe I can't believe WrestleMania ever goes to Saudi Arabia. I just don't see that happening. It's such an event for fans to travel all around the world to go see, or all around the U.S. So I don't know. Could you see the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia?
Possibly. I mean, they did do that one greatest Royal Rumble ever from there. Maybe Money in the Bank. I could definitely see that. I think now the way they do things, like it used to be a barrier to not have it in prime time, but Peacock doesn't seem to care about that. Like they know that people are going to watch when they want to watch, and as long as they watch within 24 hours, they seem to be happy with the numbers that they're getting.
I'm not sure if Peacock is necessarily the future for that stuff, but
no, but I mean, it'll be streaming.
yeah, I'm sure. I think it'll be streaming.
Yeah. So Netflix, I mean, same thing. Like obviously they want a component of people watching live, but really honestly for Netflix, they probably do want people watching on delay. Like they want people to watch. They want Netflix on all the time, not just 3 hours on Mondays. So I think that's the ideal. So yeah, I could see it. I mean, if they pay them enough, they'll go there, I'm sure. What they getting 50 million, or I think it's more actually now, like 55, 60.
Yeah, it might be 55.
So they say 250, bring WrestleMania. Like, I don't know, I'm just throwing a number out there, but it's probably in the 8 figures or 9 figures, I should say, that it would take. But
wow,
if the Prince wants a Mania, hey.
Do you know the answer to this question? I do not. Since when did major cities start bidding for WWE shows?
I feel like the first one was Clash at the Castle. Now I could be wrong. I think Mania maybe has been a few.
Yeah, WrestleMania.
But
other Mania. Yeah.
Other than this, probably. Well, actually, no. The first one will be Saudis, obviously. And then when did that start? 2017. I want to say 2016, 2017. But in terms of like besides the Saudi shows, the first one I remember hearing was the Clash of the Castle a couple of years ago. And now it seems like they'll do it every show if they can. I mean, we don't have a North American pay-per-view right now till SummerSlam. So
it's crazy.
Yeah. But or no, I shouldn't say North American, US, because we have the Money in the Bank in Canada. So and those I'm sure are all getting site fees. And with UFC, fight nights and pay-per-views, all site fees now.
Yeah.
So
we also learned that Raw does have a spot for Q4. Yep. It will be staying on USA before going to Netflix in January, and they got them for a very small sum of $25 million. I still think, and I'm going to ask Big Dave this tomorrow when I do Wrestling Observer Radio with him. I still think if I was Comcast, I would say, let's throw it on Peacock versus USA, because I just think you learn more about your audience if you want to do more stuff like that in the future. But maybe because it's a lame duck product, maybe they don't even want to waste the time experimenting for 3 months, and they're just like, let's just keep it where it is. We don't have to do anything. But I would be interested in the data that they would get from people seeing if they would watch Raw live. Because, think about it. Peacock and Netflix, while they aren't equal competitors, it's still the same playing field. Netflix just does it so much bigger. But Peacock would actually have some insight into what percentage of viewers were to watch that show. And it could be information that they would have on what WWE is going to do on Netflix. Being kind of interesting. But and did you hear this? This is kind of late. Did you hear that the NFL is working on putting 2 Christmas games on Netflix?
I did not hear that.
Wow. So that came out late tonight. I guess actually John Orand said Boomer Esiason had it on his radio show. Maybe it was on Wednesday. But the reason why this is wrestling related, at least tangentially, is a week after Christmas.
Yeah.
WWE goes on Netflix. So you could imagine there will be some cross-pollination on these NFL games.
Not only that, but you're going to get a ton of people sign up, probably.
Ton of signups.
Yeah.
Just for those games. I think you can heavily market WWE as being the place to watch that show. Though the interesting thing is, if it's, I think we think it's staying on Monday. the Netflix is going to have to sort of figure out, okay, our football broadcasters are going to promote the Monday Raw show, which is going to go up against the ESPN Monday Night Football.
Well, they're almost done the season by that
Yeah,
point,
they'll
though, right?
be almost over. But
Yeah.
so that's another interesting wrinkle to these wars. Like Netflix historically has said that they're not really into the live sports stuff, but I think what it says, their ad tier is really struggling. Like these and it's funny, Peacock has the best of these streaming ad tiers just because they've been in it for so long. I'm sure Hulu is probably pretty close as well. But Netflix is struggling with that. Now, why is that important? I don't know if this stat is still the same, but I had read, and I'm sure it changes with different services and different pricing structures, but I had read that for most of these services, their ad tier is better they want more people on an ad tier. They make more money from their subscribers on an ad tier than for you and me who just are like, we don't want ads. We're going to pay the highest price to get the thing. So that's why that, and it lowers the barrier of entry when you can have an ad tier that is less expensive as well.
Could this be why WWE was attractive to Netflix? Because the people that watch WWE are perceived as being lower income and maybe would be more likely to subscribe to the cheaper tier.
I'm sure that is part of their experiment.
Yeah. So, and with football, that's you're going to get, okay, I don't have Netflix yet. I haven't had it in a few years, but okay, what are my options? I don't even know what the ad-free tier is, but $9.99, $8.99.
Especially if you're going to watch the game live, you're going to get ads anyways, no matter what tier you buy. So you might as well buy the ad tier version.
I mean, it's possible Raw, they might, the picture-in-picture, maybe we'll get it, and we'll get those matches. But, for football, I mean, they, unless they're just going to do interviews and stuff, or, they're not going to broadcast just the sounds of the stadium. I mean, maybe that would actually be kind of cool. But, you and I are going to get the ad tier, or the non-ad tier. But, like, so NFL, anything with wide stream appeal is probably the kind of thing that people are, if you're just signing up only to see that NFL game, you're probably going to sign up for the cheaper tier. So, and then that's how Netflix can start charging for ads.
And I wonder if that is the play, which is kind of what you said, is you're trying to get people to sign up for the cheapest one, and just that's where you're going to learn a lot about your customers that way.
And I wonder if the discount that USA is giving them also allows them to promote the move to Netflix.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that is definitely
maybe you can ask Dave about that tomorrow too.
All right, topic number 2. Let's talk about the king and queen of the ring. I heard so many good things about Monday Night Raw from a wrestling perspective. And when I watched the show, I was like, yes, the wrestling was good. I just did not buy the king of the ring stakes as like real important reasons to have these wrestling matches. Now, you and I have this discussion in our Discord about AEW sometimes, which is, you put together all these matches and the hardcore AEW fan is like, oh my gosh, we get X versus X. And my thought is like, okay, what's the story behind that match? Does it have any significance? Are there stakes? What comes out of it? And sometimes nothing. It's just a match and you move on and it's just part of the show. And I think in some cases that stuff is fine. When you're doing a week-to-week show with storylines that continue and you have cliffhangers, or you should have cliffhangers, I think a lot, I don't know if everything, but most of that stuff should matter in sort of the storylines of what your show is about. And so I watched this King of the Ring because they did actually, I'm trying to remember if I saw any of the women's matches, because again, I got the clipped Hulu version of that show. It did not record all the whole 3 hours. But I thought, what are we getting for this pay-per-view or this PLE in Saudi Arabia? Does the person get a title shot? I don't think so. I think it's just they get to wear crowns, and historically that has sort of been more of a joke than anything else. And now if Triple H just figures out how to make this actually important, and this king and queen thing is actually something that people are interested in, and and the wrestlers are vying for it next year, then I will pull back on what I have said and what I'm about to say, which is I don't buy any of it. So when I watched Raw, I was like, oh, it's just like what I complain about in AEW, where you have good matches, and I'm not sure there's really any significance to any of them. But I know that you really liked it. So give me your side of this.
Okay. So I get what you're saying about the stakes and what is the winner getting? And yeah, it would be nice if they said, oh, the winner's going to get a title shot, or the winner, or is it going to be a champion even? And I guess in a sense, the King of the Ring itself is a title. It's not defended, but it's something that I think they've really tried to establish this year anyways. Like, you had a couple weeks before the tournament started, you had Gunther, fresh off the longest Intercontinental title reign of all time, cut a promo where he said, like, I want to be the King of the Ring. And then he explained why it was important to him. And then you had a couple of other people talk about it and talk about why it was important to them, as opposed to in the past, it was just something that they just kind of threw together, and there was maybe one or two people that even cared about it. And it was almost a joke. Like the last one, I pulled it up just to see, because I was trying to see if my memory was what I thought it was. And we had Jinder Mahal in that tournament. We had, Xavier Woods win the tournament. Rey Mysterio and Sami Zayn, when Sami Zayn was not Sami Zayn today. Cesaro and Finn Balor, Xavier Woods and Ricochet, Kofi Kingston and Jinder Mahal. That was your whole tournament. That was a bunch of mid-carders at the time. And then the tournament final ended up being Xavier Woods pinning Finn Balor. And then he did basically a comedy gimmick. And Zelina Vega did the same thing on the women's side. This time we've got main eventers. We've got Gunther, we've got Sheamus, we've got Ilya Dragunov, who's getting a strong push to start. AJ Styles, fresh off of challenging for the world title. Randy Orton, Carmelo Hayes, LA Knight, Tama Tonga, who's getting a pretty strong push coming out. So we have, and there's 16 people in the tournament this time instead of 8. So it just feels like more important. Now, if we get to the end and, and somebody wins and they're just walking around with a crown and talking with an accent and it's a joke.
King Booker.
Yeah. Then, you know what, we'll go back and I'll say, yeah, you were right. I was wrong. And that's the thing, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what they're doing beforehand, and then to see the actual matches. So to me, it's like, it's not quite the Continental Classic. I mean, a lot of people, like that was, in terms of North American pro wrestling, like that was some of the best pro wrestling we got in the last several years on TV every week. But then what happened at the end? Well, Eddie Kingston became a champion that never defended it. And within a couple months, he lost all those belts.
Yeah.
So, what does it mean? Well, now we got Okada as the champion, and, everyone says he's a great, everyone acknowledges, I should say, he's, one of the best wrestlers in the world. And, next year we'll do the same thing and everyone will love it and, blah, blah, blah. But we're talking about the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring. And even the Queen of the Ring this year, like, last time it was pretty clear from the start, it was going to be Zelina Vega and she was going to be doing this goofy gimmick. Now we've got a bunch of women. Like, it's not, the field isn't even finalized yet, but it's, it's women that are getting serious pushes. Bianca's in it. Io Sky's in it. Shayna Baszler, Lyra Valkyria coming out of NXT. Jade Cargill's in it. Which surprises me. So I actually, I could see her winning it, honestly, but I just feel better. And that speaks to their promotion of it. And you asked what the stakes are. And to me, the stakes are how the wrestlers feel about it. I mean, the Intercontinental title was a joke for a long time. And then Gunther, I'm not saying he made it what it is by himself, but his title reign brought it to where it is today. Even some of these world titles, we're not that long ago from Jinder Mahal being the world champion, Jake Hager, Jack Swagger, Dolph Ziggler. Well, that a lot of people are into that, but
can we get it to where it was in 1993 when Bret Hart won it? There was a seriousness in that winning the tournament. It felt like an actual sporting event for him having to wrestle those, those big bad guys that night. I think that's going to be some of it. Does it feel like exhaustion and determination and that, and if that is the case, I feel like a babyface probably needs to win it. But they may, it doesn't also have to be that. I guess if you're not going to give it something, and I'm not saying you should get, Owen Cup belts or anything, because I don't think that there's some prestige in that, because Owen's widow, Martha Hart, is involved in that. You can tell that she really cares. But it's not like these belts are defended. It's not like, you hear about them. Willow won last year. Ricky Starks won last year. And you don't hear anything about that in the announcing. So if it's just kind of forgotten and the only time it comes up is when the new tournament is, I just don't think that's enough. And, this is a historical tournament that WWE has made a joke and literally stopped doing because they couldn't figure out how to do it anymore. So again, going back to my first thing, if Triple H can make this thing valuable and make it something, then I'm in. I'm just sort of using history and hindsight as my guide here, just thinking like, okay, we're just doing this for a pay-per-view and then we're going to forget it. And that's why I'm not really invested in it. But they still have time. They still have time to get me in.
I'm looking at May 20th, and the match you talked about, like what you talked about in terms of like a babyface overcoming and all that, like it's shaping up that we're going to get Gunther and Ilya Dragunov, in the Raw final. And then I don't know who they're going to face on the SmackDown side, but to me, that's the actual final. Like that's the match I'm looking at, and I hope they give me. And if we get it, I've seen it before. It's awesome, and I have no doubt that it will be awesome this time.
I agree with you, except they just put Jey Uso on his side.
Yeah,
if it was Balor, I think Gunther and Dragunov would be a lock for that side of the Raw bracket. But with Uso, it makes it a little, though, whomever he's feuding with, Judgment Day or whatever, they could always screw him and he loses, and that's totally fine too.
I'd rather see it be clean, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
On the other side, though, AJ and Randy, I think is Friday.
Yep.
And outside of those guys, I'm not too sharp on the rest of that bracket.
Tama Tonga is better than people think.
He's going to get an actual walk into the next round because Bobby Lashley is now out of the tournament, replaced by Angelo Dawkins.
I think it's probably going to come down to, I mean, I'm hoping Randy Orton and LA Knight. I'm expecting AJ and LA Knight again, which I really don't want to see again, but that's probably what we're getting on that side.
Yeah, when you get to the final couple matches, I think it'll be pretty interesting because of the difference in the matches. But all right, let's talk about Anarchy in the Arena, which was the big hook for Dynamite. And we have the Elite running roughshod over AEW television. And I thought the creative for building to this Anarchy in the Arena match was actually kind of poor. I think the match, the people who love that style of match, I think that it's going to be awesome. Like for that, I don't really like it that much. I've been there live to see it a couple times. I've seen it. I think I've seen it at home once as well. It's not my favorite match. I don't think that the build is to use a pun, is blood and guts enough to have this crazy ass match where didn't like Eddie Kingston like get set on fire or something almost in like the first one? Like, I don't know. It just feels really put together. It feels like we're having an Anarchy in the Arena match because it is time to have an Anarchy in Arena match based on the calendar, and not because the build is strong enough for one. Same argument I would have had about WWE doing Hell in a Cell pay-per-views back in the day. And, we're in this crutch of Tony Khan wanting to create his own like special, unique match for this show, which is great. You need something to market. You need something that fans know, oh, when Double or Nothing is coming, I know I'm getting into Anarchy in the Arena. This one just feels more forced than some of the other ones. And having a team AEW is so silly to me, especially when 2 of the elite are like the 2 of the first 4 wrestlers signed to the brand, and then I think you made this point that none of the other folks on Team AEW were actually day 1 employees of AEW, so it's kind of weird. I don't know, just not I wasn't feeling it. I think also not having Moxley and having Eddie Kingston, I think is actually a flaw. I'm assuming because Mox is going to do something with his New Japan title with the IWGP, but there's a story that that would have been much better had Moxley and Danielson been 2 of the other guys.
This show is in 2 weeks, and we're assuming a lot. They could have made one change that would have made. Okay, the match wouldn't have had the star power, but it would have made a lot more sense, and I could have got behind it a lot more. If you sub in, take out Bryan Danielson and put in Mark Briscoe, that makes so much sense.
You know what that signals, though? It's the same thing that it signals for Eddie Kingston.
What?
Those guys are going to be the ones losing.
What, you don't think Danielson being in it signals that they're losing? When does Danielson ever win a big match?
I don't think he's losing. I think... okay.
You don't? I think they are.
If it was... No. If it was Moxley in the Eddie Kingston spot, then I would think either Cash or Danielson was losing the match.
I see what you mean. Okay,
being the person to be the reason to lose the match.
No, I think Cash is taking the pin no matter what. But
yeah,
no, I see what you're saying. You're saying if Mark was in there, he's the guy that's going to take the fall.
Yeah, I think it's too much of a clue because
I just think
never wins on TV.
He's got the history with FTR. He loves AEW for what they did for his family and for him and for Jay. And even Eddie Kingston and him have that history, like
let's erase the last year of Mark Briscoe and actually push him to the moon like he deserves to be pushed. And then you're talking, and now you're cooking with grease. But the way that they've just, what a great story. And
he
just
didn't
what
even,
a fantastic personality, and they just don't utilize it.
He didn't even wrestle in ROH at all. And then they gave him a world title match and he won it. And we haven't seen him since. He hasn't been on AEW. He hasn't been on ROH. I watch ROH every week. Trust me, he's not on ROH. I don't know what
not
he's
even
doing.
Cutting promos.
Nope. He's in the opening graphics, like holding his belt along with all the other people we don't see on ROH TV. It's it's Dark Elevation that you pay $10 a month for. But yeah. The match will be great. I'll be there live. I've seen, I think, every one of them live, except for like the first one was in Jacksonville in a like kind of a closed stadium-ish thing. So there wasn't very many people there, but all the Vegas ones I've been at, and it'll be great. But the thing is you're right. And I didn't even think about this. Like, it's just another thing that they're doing like WWE did. I remember when AEW first started and listening to Wrestling Observer, and Dave would make that comparison and he would say, like these matches, they feel more organic. Like it's not that, it's May, we got to do this. They're
going to have to do it again for Blood and Guts in a couple months.
That's what people are talking about already. They're saying, you'll sub in Moxley for Kingston or, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. And then we'll have Blood and Guts and it'll be the same cruise. And that's what it's been, every time. And then maybe that's where they get their win. And so, you're already looking past the main event of this show. And I mean, this is going to be clearly is going to be the main event. And so your world champion who just got laid out is going to be in an undercard match. And they've been doing this for a year. MJF's whole reign, I think he had maybe 1 or 2 matches that were in the main event. And even those, like Wembley, it was the main event, but it wasn't really, the draw was the stadium.
Yeah. And,
the World's End, that was definitely built around MJF. No question there. But everything else, like he was always the afterthought. And then Joe, he was Revolution. It was Sting match. The last one, it was Danielson and Ospreay. This one, like Swerve is not, it's number 2 match on the card right now. But I bet you even for a lot of people, Willow and Mercedes is probably more looked forward to than Christian and Swerve right now. So,
Yeah, that is a rough one. As much as I love Christian's run, it's a tough one for Swerve, really. Christian has a job to do and he's going to do it very well. but it just the fact that Christian is the one, I think, makes people sort of what you said. They look at that title as like, oh, it's kind of a lesser title right now. I just want to quickly go over some of the matches and just to kind of get your sort of like where you're feeling so far for this card.
Hot or not?
Yeah, hot or not. Willow and Mercedes.
I'm looking forward to that one. I think that it's going to be. What I'm really looking forward to is what the reaction in the arena is going to be, and I feel like it's going to be 90-10 Willow.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting how that. And I think they've been setting it up that way. Like they probably realized very quickly that Mercedes wasn't the babyface that they kind of maybe were thinking she was going to be. But how can she be when she's facing Willow? Like it's just
her promo this week was like the most heelish that it's been. I mean, she closed it off by saying, "I'm going to wipe that smile off your face." Like doesn't get more heelish.
She did. She cut the Jade Cargill line too.
Yeah, I'm that bitch.
Roderick Strong and Will Ospreay.
I mean, that's gonna be a great match. Okay, so I am looking forward to this more than I should, and the reason being is that I think Will's gonna win, which probably means he's not winning the world title at Wembley. But what it does mean is we're probably gonna get matches probably every other week on Dynamite and every pay-per-view. You know, like the Will Ospreay 5-star match. You know, and to me that's great. For me, like I think it could be what Cody was with the TNT title and what Copeland's trying to do right now. I think it could actually be with Ospreay. He could be defending this title against people from all over the world, from companies all over the place, and having these banger matches. So I'm more looking forward to it for what I'm expecting to happen after than the actual match itself will be great. It might be the best match on the show. In fact, pretty good odds that it is. But
yeah, I have a disconnect with him chasing this belt, especially after facing off in the best in the world match, which is how that match was promoted. And then you're going like, oh yeah, I just won this historical best wrestler in the world match. And now I'm going to actively opt in for the tertiary belt.
The only problem here is, well, I shouldn't say the only problem, but he won this match. And where the hell is he? We have not seen Will Ospreay.
This is going to be his schedule, dude. Like, yeah, it's a crazy travel schedule. I imagine it's like he'll be here for the next 2 TVs, the pay-per-view, and then the TV after the pay-per-view, because those are going to be sort of the major ones. And then he'll probably be on the
fair. I did look into the flights to go to All In. Getting from Winnipeg to London and back is a bitch. and I imagine Edmonton's the same thing. So it could just be that.
Yeah.
We're talking 16-hour travel days.
That's rough. That is
both ways. Both ways. So yeah, it could just be Tony said, you know what, take a couple weeks off.
Yeah, and plus the next ones are more important anyways.
Exactly. Yeah, because he'll probably just stay in the States, you know, from the next Dynamite till the pay-per-view, I would guess.
All right, and the only other one that has actually been made, I think, is Tony Storm and Serena Deeb.
That one took a nosedive this week.
Serena had a rough night.
I don't blame Serena. I blame they should have done this backstage, maybe even had it be pre-taped with like music and workout footage and stuff. But having her go out there, they were trying to recreate what they did with Willow and Mercedes. And I mean, I thought like what she said and how she said it was great, but this audience did not want to hear it.
She was, I don't think she was comfortable with the audience reactions, and her pace was off, and she had all of this stuff to say. She knew she had some really heartfelt stuff, and it was kind of coming. It was the moment. And the fans are just trying to get themselves over, and so she kind of lost it a little bit there. This happened
to her once before too. Do you remember? It was her and Thunder Rosa. They tried something similar when she did that line about Vince McMahon making her get implants.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it was, and then you know she got the what my partner Jeff likes to call the main event swear word. And then Tony just scooped her like immediately after. And
I did notice that.
I don't give a shit about your problems. And the fans cheered.
That. Yeah.
Like, poor Serena. And I just feel like Serena also is not. I mean, if you watch everything, if you watch Collision, Rampage, you know, like all the social medias and everything, everybody, you know, Serena's established. If you only watch Dynamite, she isn't well established. I believe the match she had last week in Winnipeg was the first time she's been on Dynamite in a couple of years. So, that's part of it too, I think.
Interesting.
That people, and in Canada, we don't get Collision and Rampage. So they don't even know her. So that could be part of it too. And Tony is, she's on every week. She's got a popular gimmick that I hate. And so, it's naturally she's going to get the cheers. So,
yes, I don't hate it. I like it, but it's mostly because sometimes pro wrestling is you have to do the best version of what gets you over, and it's up to the other person to kind of keep up with you. And so I think there's a struggle because while a lot of people want to see Tony Storm with the backwards hat on because that they perceive that is the better wrestler, that is also the wrestler who maybe makes less money on gimmicks and on t-shirts and on just where she is in the pecking order. So this other stuff that she's doing with this character, to me, it's up to the other women to keep up with it. Now, can you, if she gets all the funny lines and she can sort of no-sell certain things? It's hard. It's definitely hard. But I think Tony's just doing Tony, and she's just found so much success with it. So, okay. Let's move on to Mox against Shooter in the New Japan show. I wonder how many people are actually going to get to watch this show. I hope a fair amount, but you have the playoffs going on. You have the 3-hour show again for AEW at the same time. Personally,
isn't it the next night? I thought it was Sunday.
Is it Sunday?
I think so. I could be wrong.
It might be Sunday. You might be right about that.
Yeah.
But just now we just have wrestling weekends these days, right? It's
and
wrestling weekends, and it's like how much is too much, whatever. But the point that I was going to make, which you now reminded me, is you're probably right.
You're right. It is Saturday.
Okay.
I just looked it up.
Okay. This is Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah.
And for me and my wife, I think we're going to do a lot of stuff on Saturday. And so I'm not watching any wrestling. Yeah, I may watch some stuff, late, but Sunday we'll do stuff too. But Sunday is so crazy generally. We're just going to do all of that stuff on Saturday and maybe go on a hike on Sunday. So I'm kind of like not watching anything this weekend. But I do hope that people watch the New Japan show because, and here's where I was getting at, which is we have Forbidden Door coming up. And that's we still have Double or Nothing, and then Forbidden Door coming up. Moxley having this title should be super meaningful for these upcoming pay-per-views. Him having this very historical title and doing New Japan style championship matches on AEW shows should be beneficial to New Japan Pro Wrestling. It should be the their little payback from them kind of incentivizing the Forbidden Door for even happening. And I'm not feeling it yet, but it might just be that, we kind of have to wait until this New Japan show in SoCal, and then we can sort of see what they're going to do for Double or Nothing. But I think we need to have a Japanese heel be on one or both of these shows. I know Big Dave was talking about Jay White, which would be great because Jay White's a great wrestler, but he's been pushed as a goof for the last many months. So we're just now going to shoehorn him into being a legitimate contender because he was in the past, and it's not based on who he is today. I don't really like that. But I'm like, let's bring Naito in, and even if Naito has to lose again, at least he's losing his matches to Moxley on U.S. soil, which sort of whets the appetite of the Japanese fans who are like, okay, but when Moxley comes and defends, and gets a shot at, or Naito gets a shot on our soil, our guy's going to win. Like, I like that kind of booking. But
what about Konosuke Takeshita?
I mean, it's going to be a good match. I just don't know how it sort of accentuates the regalness of this New Japan IWGP
Fair enough.
historical
Fair enough.
championship. Because, if Swerve, we just talked about Swerve's title, not really benefiting him as it should. Because I think, if we go back 4 months, I thought this dude was going to be, near the tippy top, and it didn't work out. But he still has time they can still make it better. But this first match is not doing him any favors. Moxley's a bigger star in the canon than Swerve is, so this match should technically be bigger. I just want to see them go full bore with it. I don't want to see random AEW wrestler who's not doing anything else or is not in any other. I don't want to see, as fun as Miro and Moxley might be, I don't want to see Miro versus John Moxley for the IWGP Championship. Now, I just brought Miro up. I'm sure he's got lots of other things for the reason why he's not wrestling right now, but just that sort of thing. Like, oh, who's like the next guy? Oh, Trent. Trent is now, this big bad. Let's put Trent in I don't want to see that. I want to see what the real IWGP title match should be.
You know who we're getting? It's probably gonna be Kyle Fletcher.
Oh my God.
Because actually everything you're saying, actually, I think it's the opposite. I think they want to give him a match. They want to feature the title, but they don't want it to overshadow their own world title. So it's probably going to be a lesser challenger, like a Will Hobbs, like was. So I kind of feel like it's going to be Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope I'm wrong.
Look, it would not surprise me in any way.
And that'd be a great match, but I mean, we know what's happening.
Yeah, I just I'm not happy with that kind of stuff when because you're not building future business for Moxley, and you're not taking full advantage of the specialness of this title when you do stuff like that.
Did you see his last title defense?
I did not know. I didn't watch it.
It wasn't good.
Is that the Ren Narita match?
Yeah. It was the worst match on the show.
Oh, was it because of all the House of Black stuff?
Yeah. So I think this match will be better because him and Shooter, there won't be the outside interference. So yeah, it'll be good.
All right, last topic here, which I'm sure you have not seen, which is this Dark Side of the Ring Black Saturday. Now, John and I have been doing short sort of recap reviews of these Dark Side shows, and this was the last one. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm so excited to see to read Big Dave's write-up. Now, I'm sure Big Dave has written this thing up 5 different times in the Wrestling Observer, in the issue of the Wrestling Observer. I can't wait to see it again. I'm just so excited to read it and to go through that time period. Like, he's got like just this memory of that time period like nobody else. And so it's fascinating. But I will say, what I wanted to do was I wanted to give you, somebody who has not seen these, because you don't even get them yet, right? So I wanted to go through all of the Dark Sides from this last season and just say, which ones are watchable and which ones you can sort of skip.
Okay.
The first one was on John Tenta. Not super dark outside of him passing away early in his life. That was, I would say, was very watchable. It was very heartfelt, and his kids really stole the show. So I would say watch that one. You can skip Buff and the Bagwells. It's everything you already know about Buff Bagwell, though there is a bit of a happy ending at the end, if we are to believe in the happy ending. That was really nice. Terry Gordy, Final Flight of the Freebird. Very interesting subject matter. It was solid, but it was kind of like, because of the legend of Terry Gordy as such a young person in the business, and all these stories that you would hear, his daughter also in it. I think that Dark Side understands that when you put their children in there. I really
love Ray Gordy.
Well.
I love Jesse. So
yes.
Yeah.
So that was very watchable. I wouldn't call it one of the best. Saving Face, the Brutus Beefcake story. My friend Kevin Lacey, who was actually the announcer, the ring announcer for John LaRocca's Premier Wrestling back in the day. That's how I met Kevin.
I saw it in the chat today.
He said that beefcake one was out there. Yeah, it's probably the worst one, I would say. Life and Legends of Harley Race. I kind of watched it and went, oh, Harley Race. Not the best guy necessarily, not the best dad for sure. And I asked Dave about this on air. I'm like, man, for Harley Race being a bad dad and being a bad husband, the son still puts him on the pedestal. And he's like, that was his hero. That's
Wow.
kind of the deal. The Chris Colt story one, I think it was the most hyped from the hardcore wrestling fans. And when I watched it, I was like, okay, I didn't follow every wrestling magazine and every wrestling history thing, and I haven't read every book. How come I don't ever hear much about this guy? So I talked to Big Dave about this. He's like, yeah, because he wasn't that big of a star. And it's just the story of his persona and his lifestyle is actually very interesting. But as a wrestling star, they tried to purport him as bigger than he was. But still, watchable show. Chris Adams, I thought, was the best one. The Gentleman and the Demon. He was also a miserable SOB. That's kind of the theme with these dark sides, is that these people are not necessarily great people. But that was really good. I would say that was the best one of the season. Sensational Sherry was really good as well. Her son, in the issues that he's having, he also stuck up for his mother, but he also he really used this opportunity to show who the other mother was in his life, which is his stepmom, who also raised him. And the stepmom got the glory at the end. And the stepmom then put over Sherry and basically said, we were tag team partners in raising this child. So that was really good. And Sandman was one of the bottom ones, but I'm not an ECW guy. There may have been some. I was talking to Dave about this on Wrestling Observer Radio, and I was like, I just don't understand. Sandman, I thought, was going to have this like happy ending, and he's going to just apologize to his kids and all this stuff, and he didn't. And so I guess there's a group of folks who do like a Sandman podcast, and so they were like, hey, here's really the backstory. Here's like what's going on. I retweeted it. I haven't listened to it, but if people want to check out my Twitter feed, you could find that link to the Sandman podcast. And then Black Saturday, which I think was probably the second best one.
Oh.
So there's the rankings on this season 5 of Dark Side of the Ring. I enjoyed it. I'm just so surprised that they can still find the subject matters to have these, because last year I was like, really, like the Marty Jannetty's the main event tentpole one. And I remember I think we talked to Evan, and I had asked him, I think this was before season 4 came out, or maybe it was season 3, and I was like, the subjects are not, that you did the big ones already. Now you're having some smaller ones. Like, how do you sort of decide what's like the main one of the thing? And so he was just kind of going through it. I mean, I'm sure it's hard. But as I told John LaRocca, the next time we do some reviews of these shows is going to be that WCW one that The Rock is doing. Yeah. We're going to go through that one. That will be funny. Oh. Anything on NXT, or have you watched it yet?
Oh yeah, I watched it. The show was awful. Just say it. And it's funny because it got a great number. Did a great number.
I saw Roxanne beat Chelsea.
Yeah, that was fine. The opener, I think, if I'm remembering right, I don't remember which match it was, but it was fine. And then there was like 6 or 7, like just, like 5-minute matches that were nothing, and a bunch of backstage. It wasn't like a bad show. Like there was nothing on the show that was like, oh, that was terrible, or, stuff that Brian's going to go on for 15 minutes with Vinny. It's just a bunch of matches. And, Trick, there was actually a really good segment with Trick and Noam Dar, and Noam Dar actually got serious, which he's never done. Yeah, so that was cool. And they're teasing they're outright doing it now. Lash Legend and Trick as a couple. So, like
are they a couple in real life?
They are, yeah. So they're playing that up on camera now, and Noam is not happy about it. So he laid him out with with a back elbow, like a Judas effect, and then afterwards, like they left without Lash, and the NXT girl catches them outside, and where's Lash, and she's doing her own thing, drop it, and they left. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's a power couple if I've ever heard of a power couple.
But next week, so our boy Javon Evans,
okay,
he's wrestling Noam Dar next week, which really bugs me, because Noam Dar, it looks like, is going to be challenging Trick for the title, which
he's
means
got to beat him.
He's got to beat him, and he shouldn't be losing right now. They had a great promo exchange in between them or whatever. Like they were going back and forth, and Noam was like get out of my face, kid, and Trick had a great line. He told Oro Mensah, I'm gonna slap your face right back to the motherland or something.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I was like, I did a double take. Tell me he didn't just say that. Yeah. Wow. So that was in the middle of the show. That was pretty cool, but the rest of the show was just kind of there.
All right, so yeah, basically I do the dark side thing, and then John tells me if there's anything on NXT, because I still refuse to watch it.
I would say go watch that Supernova Sessions. You'll probably enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of the rare Trick thing that I hear about, I usually skip that show. But okay, so last couple things here, which is John will be back next week, hopefully, as long as he's feeling better. And again, we're trying to do more live streams with that show, with the Fight Game Podcast. It's kind of late for East Coasters, but there's a pocket of wrestling fans who will watch a live stream at 9 p.m. Pacific. So we're hoping to tap into those folks. So thank you to everybody who was in the chat: JMG Gillis, Kevin Lacey, as I mentioned, Charlie Bonilla, who I think he watches the shows that I do with Draven, the Observe This shows. And then Slam Hub Wrestling, Billy N does not like AEW very much.
No.
Jeff Hawkins, your partner, came in and he was chiming in a little bit. And
Adrian Smith, I see there.
Adrian Smith as well. Yes.
Yeah. I what we should do? We're both going to be in Vegas. We should do a show in Vegas in a couple weeks.
It would be hard to do video, but we could definitely do podcast.
Okay. Well, we'll do something. Because we'll tell everybody what they're missing.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. Yeah. We'll I plan on bringing my my recorder, and hopefully that we can do something. But I always think of doing something, and then that's so busy when we're there.
Yeah. But
So, we'll see.
yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. But
okay.
Yeah, we'll all be there.
All right. So quickly, you and Jeff recorded the Dynamite show last night, so Wednesday night. You guys do that every Wednesday night. You guys have been doing it for a long time now.
Yeah. I mean, Parker Klein and I started the show in, I think it was 2020, March 2020, I think. No, 21, because it was right after Brody died. So Brody died in end of 2020, right? So yeah, because we did a show together. We had never met, never talked, and we did a show on Brody. And then we just had chemistry. And then you decided to put us on the Fight Game Media Network. But then Parker left after about 6 months, and Jeff took over. So that would have been like October 21. So we're coming up on 3 years now.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably know, but people listening may not know. I was doing a show with Dave and Jim Ross.
Yes,
and we just finished. I just stopped the recording, and I refreshed Twitter. And I was the one who told Dave and Jim Ross about the Brody passing.
Yeah, no, I remember, because you were talking to us in our, I think it was our Facebook group or Slack or something, and I couldn't believe it. And and I, we were all just floored. And yeah, that seems like that was almost 4 years ago now.
It's crazy.
So,
crazy. And so that show, if you want to listen to Paul and Jeff, that is on Fight Game Media Network. We have a website where all of our content gets posted. So if you ever want to check out anything Fight Game Media related, you just go to fightgamemedia.com. You'll find all the videos, all the audio there. And you just started doing a Joy of Wrestling show as well on the YouTube channel. It's YouTube exclusive. And that is what you've been doing it like what, Monday nights?
I try to do it Monday. It doesn't always work for my guests. So perfect world, it's Monday right after Raw. so 11 p.m. Eastern. But we've gone Tuesday, we've gone Sunday. I've had some interesting guests. We've done 6 shows so far, and I'm working on my guest for next week. I believe in 2 weeks I got JD Oliva coming on.
Oh,
from,
nice.
From Voices of Wrestling.
Voices of Wrestling.
Yeah, and the
Formerly
JD and Mike
from
show.
Fight Game Media.
Former Fight Game. Yeah. I'm working on somebody for next week that you'll like, but I don't want to spoil it by saying because he hasn't answered yet. So, but hopefully that's coming. But I do have a list, so we'll get someone on. If worst case scenario, I'll just go on myself. But I want to keep it going. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. But it's just basically talking about what we find joy in wrestling, basically, like what made us happy as a fan, whether it be a show, a match, an angle. And we've had some really a real wide range of things, going back to the old school with Hulkamania, and as recently as like this year for some stuff. So and a wide variety of guests as well, some women. It's great.
We do have a super chat last second here from
I
Bluey. Who's the Booker of the Year Q1 2024?
I mean, it's got to be Hunter.
It's got to be Triple H, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I like Sean's booking in NXT, and that's who I voted for last year. But for quarter one, I mean, they did 2 $17.5 million shows, and they're both pretty well received. And then you follow that up with Backlash. It's tough to beat.
I mean, for sure. Promoter for sure, just for those things that you said, and the wrestling is part of that vehicle to
Well, would the promoter be him or Nick Khan?
I think it's Nick Khan. The promoter.
Yeah.
But for Booker, to put together. Okay, now here's the question: is Booker of the Year Triple H or The Rock?
I mean, some people want to say Vince. Like if Vince is the one that stepped in and said no Cody winning the title last year, I mean, this year doesn't happen.
Okay, but he's not making any of the booking decisions for 2024.
True, yeah. I mean, I could make a case for The Rock. I mean, the funny thing is Rock is probably, I mean, he's definitely draw of the year.
Yep.
Some people are going to vote for promo for sure. Some people are going to vote for him for wrestler of the year, based on one match, but not the match itself, but just the business that it created.
Dave may he may have to veto some of those if that does happen. But and so the reason why I say The Rock, and I sort of meant it tongue in cheek, but now this may actually mean more for Triple H's candidacy here because he had to deal with a lot. Yeah. He doesn't have to deal with the giant persona of the superstar of all superstars, really. Like that hasn't been something that he's had to deal with in his time. He's got really good people. Roman, as big of a persona as he is as part of the bloodline, I don't think that Roman Reigns or Joe Anoa'i, the human, probably makes it all that tough for Triple H to book his storylines. But The Rock did. The Rock came in flexing his biceps and going like, this is what I want to do. And that, this is to the benefit of The Rock. And some of it is probably because just, he's been taking some L's lately, and he's still taking those L's, by the way. That article that came out the other day, a couple weeks ago, from The Wrap was tough, but he realized that he was getting booed, and it's not going to be good for him if he's a babyface and he's getting booed. So he stepped aside and made sure that, the right story was going to be the one being told. And then he turned heel, which was to the benefit of Cody. Hopefully will be to the benefit of Roman, though Roman did look secondary to The Rock, definitely in that entire build. And hopefully Seth got a little bit of rub off of that too. So
what else like that you didn't even mention that is strong in his case, and it's something that is one of Tony Khan's shortfalls by his own admission, where he doesn't like to do the long-term storytelling because of injuries.
Yeah.
And Triple H has had to deal with a lot of injuries, and he's figured out a way to make those people relevant. We had Seth Rollins who couldn't wrestle for 3 months, and he was on TV every week building a match. CM Punk right now is building a match that's going to draw future business. You know, and then you get Roman disappearing and The Rock now disappearing, and we're still going. We're going every week and we're doing stuff, and that is a skill to figure out a way to integrate these guys that can't wrestle into your weekly television.
Yeah, Tony just doesn't seem to want to deal with it.
No, no. So you know what? I mean, you know, they're doing well. They're doing great. You know, they're selling a lot of pay-per-views. They're get good TV numbers every week. So you know, it's just two different ways of doing things.
Yeah,
but
and
it is a feather in his cap that he's able to deal with these injuries.
I'm glad this question is about Q1 though, because this post WrestleMania stuff hasn't really done it for me WWE wise. But I do understand, like, all, you know, 3 or 4 of their giant stars just fell off, and so you're booking a show with less star power around Cody. I was more bummed that they didn't have someone better than AJ for that.
Losing Cody hurts Raw a lot. You know, I as good as the show was this week, that's what hit me.
Jay is not necessarily ready to be the top babyface.
No, Punk and Drew are the only things really that casual fans are going to watch that show for. And so, they're both injured right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, they got to cart them out there and do something, but you know, is it hitting? It didn't hit this week.
No. All righty. That is it from here. I want to thank Paul for joining me and substituting for John LaRocca. Thanks, Bluey, as well for the super chat there. So next week, John should be back. If not, we have to dial up Paul again. But for Paul Fontaine, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.